Hello, everybody. This is Sree from BizBuzz. What matters the most in your business? And sponsored by MyWorkbelt. MyWorkbelt is a software and also a business system, particularly catering to service-based small United States, Canada, Nigeria, and everywhere. If you have not checked it out, I would highly recommend you to check out myworkbelt.com. Today, we have a guest, Matt Ley. Matt Ley is author of Manage Your Gaps and a co-founder of IPN Advisors. Matt has been a coach and consultant and a facilitation background, and he is been dealing with and helping small businesses all around. He loves to talk about the three gaps. So, Matt, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for coming on to the show. Appreciate your time being with us.
Thanks, Sree. Pleasure to be here. Excited for the conversation.
I am so glad to hear that. So, Matt, tell me a little bit more about what is your observation in the last 10 years, if there is anything changing in a small business arena?
I think things that are changing in observation is we're coming out of COVID, so that's one thing. It's like, how do we do business differently? And so that's small businesses have learned how to, one, make themselves present and recognize where their resiliency is. Like being hit by that has really brought a lot of things to the table. And one of them aligns a lot with what I've been observing, particularly, is around the concept of how does management show up in a small business? And the reason for that, I think this is actually one of the root causes behind, if you look at the small business like Bureau of the statistics, that small businesses fail at 3, 5, and 10 years at a pretty significant rate. It's the fact that to start a business, you need a vision, you need a dream. That's leadership. That's what leadership does. And you need a product, or you need a service that you can provide value through. That's what contribution does. So you really just need leadership and contribution to start a business. Well, success happens, and all of a sudden you're like, this is great, we're growing, and this little thing creeps in the middle. It's called management. And if you aren't aware of that, one, you probably aren't wired for it if you've been really good at leadership and contribution. And two, you don't know what it looks like because it sort of blends into both of those pieces. So what I work with small businesses particularly around is understanding how management is different and how to address it, because the whiplash for especially a founder stepping in between all three lanes can be exhausting. And so I'm
if,
that step in. Yeah.
So if I take it correctly, so your observation in the management, more the changes in the management happen in the last 10 years, there is a difference in the management styles because of the COVID. And is that fair? That what your observation?
Yeah, so it's that because during COVID we have to do so much pivoting. Correct. That's where management, which I have a management model they call EPIC, which stands for Environment, Performance, Identity, and Communication. Those are the 3 or 4 areas that management really focuses in a business that's different from leadership. And so being able to navigate that space, if you have other employees with you, that's where the management skills really are put to the test.
When you're talking about managing, right? Also talking about leader or leadership skills. Is there a difference between them? Because there's a lot of people call it leaders are not managers, managers are not leaders, and it's kind of everybody talks about in a different concept. What is your concept on difference between leader and manager?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say the way I define it is leaders define the new, managers refine the now. And so I think of that as, I call it the X factor of success. Leaders are looking up and out, managers are looking down and in. And so when you're doing both of those, you can think of the head snap if you're the only person in both of those seats.
And then that hurts.
And it hurts. And so it starts to not be fun anymore. And you don't know why, because people haven't given you the language, because you think you're the founder, you're the leader, you have to do all of it. And it's okay to say, I want to be the visionary, or I really want to be the contributor, and I'm going to let some of this other stuff go to let someone else help me in that.
If I take that into account, now you're saying for any business to survive and thrive, you are suggesting that both leaders and managers are necessary. It's not like one or other. Am I right?
So what I would say is leadership as an activity and management as an activity are both necessary. If you're small enough, those could potentially live underneath the same person.
Correct.
But you need to recognize that they're different things.
They're two different things.
I think like measuring KPIs, goals, all of that, those are actually management skills because they're oversight. They're not leadership skills.
Right.
So it's being able to distinguish between the two is really valuable.
And actually, you definitely demystified my confusion in mind as well. How is the leader different from manager? That's really how you're able to distinguish those two first in such a short sentence.
Yeah, and one other one that's just, I think another really easy framing of this is that the only people that create value in your organization are the contributors. And they're the people who work in the business. What managers do is they work on the business. And what leaders do is they work on the future. So that's the focus of all three portions of the business. And the part that I think is really valuable, especially as you're growing, is recognizing that management and leadership are both contingent positions. They're only there because of the contributors. And so the contributors are really the drivers of any organizational success.
Absolutely. So in your book, you talk about three gaps. What are the three gaps you're talking about?
Yeah, so the first gap is kind of what we've been talking about. I call that the strategic gap. Is does your organization understand what management is as an activity set? Do they understand what managers do? Can they articulate that as a value proposition for the organization? And a lot of times we don't. We either treat managers as the gold star for tenure. You've been here long enough, so you got to be a manager, or you're an outstanding individual contributor. So congratulations, we're promoting you to a manager role. So it's a gold star, or we treat it like the JV league for future leaders. Say, okay, well, you come in here, you're the junior varsity, get it all out of your system, make all your mistakes in management before you become like a real leader.
Or you become really manager.
Different. It's got the value proposition for people in that space, again, to help refine them.
Now, when you're talking about business, right, finance is something, an extremely important element. Right? As you just mentioned, that contributors are key drivers. At the same time, cash flow, how money is flowing within the organization, how is it coming, how is it out in the organization. So in many cases, particularly in business ownership, they hold that finance flow within the organization opposed to giving it to the managers. So what is your recommendation?
I think that's fine for me, that the accountability of finance is in the leader space. What they need to do is build in feedback loops if they have other staffed individuals that are focused on management to get the feedback of how is the vision tracking into the reality of the day-to-day. Because I say while leaders are doing the visioning, what managers are doing is they're activating and optimizing. So they need to be constantly looking at, hey, this is the place we could do this better. Maybe we need to standardize, or this isn't going to be scalable unless we have a system on the back end of it. They're multipliers. So like, well, as a contributor will add value, a manager that's doing their job well is multiplying the value of the organization.
So 9 out of 10 when a new business started or a business owner, a leader in your definition of leadership, because if they were not to be thinking about the future, they would not have even started the business, right? So in that context, they are the leaders. Now, they can be in the early stages of the business, they can be both leader and a manager. But at some point of time, they have to pick and choose which area they wanted to put their 90% of energy. They want to put 90% of energy into being a leadership role or 90% of energy to manager role, because they cannot do 50-50 anymore. Otherwise, they'll be bottleneck to the growth of their own organization, right? Now, at the same time, because they are born as a leader of the organization, they naturally tend to be in the leadership role opposed to manager role. So my observation is a lot of businesses, they try to bring the managers. So what is your recommendation for the leader in picking a manager? What do they have to look for the base points bringing the manager into the organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say that holds true. A lot of times, the founder is the initial leader. They've got the vision, and they want to kind of stay in that seat. And so, what they're looking for that manager is, can they articulate and translate the vision? So that when the leader says, "Hey, here's what we're doing," the manager is, I understand why we're going there, so they can explain the why, and they're great at communicating. They connect with people. They give I call it the 4 C's. This is kind of my litmus test, particularly for management. You need to show people you care. You need to give them clarity. You need to give them consistency, and you need to communicate with them. So if the person is good at those 4, they're pretty well suited to do that, as long as they can get the why behind the vision of the leader.
Care, clarity, communication, and consistency. Or I should say care, clarity, consistency, and communication. Is there a sequence to it, or they are just the 4 attributes that you are looking for in a manager?
Yeah, I would say care and communication, and the other 2 are going to come from that. But if people don't, it's like, I think was the Benjamin Franklin quote, people won't care what you know until they know that you care.
That's it for. Thank you very much. So if I am taking it back, so you are suggesting leadership is different from managerial activities. If you look at the leadership as an activity that is looking out for the future and creating something new, whereas managers is looking inward and they are trying to refine what they have, improve what you have, make it standardized, make it process oriented, or how to improve it furthermore to make it more efficient. So that's where you are distinguishing between leaders and managers. And you are also suggesting if you are leader, you are the business owner, and naturally you tend into the leadership role because you are coming with a vision and you're looking for the future growth of the organization. So at that time, you have to pick the manager. And if you're wanting to pick the manager, you want to look at manager with the 4 C's: care, communication, and what is that for?
Clarity,
care, clarity, communication, and contribution.
Consistency.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
So if they have all these 4, now you have a baseline that you can work with the manager and have the manager to take the vision forward with the rest of the organization. Whether it could be a 2-people organization or it could be a 2,000-people organization. But having those 4 characters will give you a good baseline for having a manager in your team.
Yep.
Matt, thank you very much for joining me today. That's a greatly helpful tips that you are offering, and the wisdom you're bringing to the small business community in such a short span is immensely valuable. Greatly appreciate being on this.
Thanks, Sree. And if people want to learn more about it, you can get the first 4 chapters of the book at managergaps.com. Download those for free just to get a taste of it.
Excellent. Managergaps.com. And you have your contact information over there. They can reach out to you in managergaps.com as well.
That's excellent. Correct.
Thank you very much. And if those who are listeners, take a look at it, managergaps.com, and read the book, which is definitely one of the valuable that read and apply on business. And in the meantime, I would highly recommend you to subscribe and like this video on YouTube. And myworkbelt.com is where you can learn more about MyWorkbelt. Thank you.